Thank you for joining us. We are going to talk about the 2027 Marketplace final rules. I'm Chelsea Gomez, and I am here to help you prepare for OEP next year with the rules that you will probably, I don't want to say will, because as we know, something always seems to happen between now and then that gets us changing our game one more time right before OEP in the finalist final of hours. But as of right now at 10:01, June 18th, 2026, this is what your OEP will look like this fall and kind of winter, I guess. Joining me today is Randy Lober, my non-crime crime partner. Randy, give the audience what they want.
Hi, everyone. Thanks for joining us here today. Happy to take any and all questions you might have today about the final place rule or any more zoo or aquarium feedback. We are here for anything that's on your minds here today. But we've got a lot to share with you this morning, so we'll let Chelsea get to it.
Yes, please put any and all questions into the chat, and we will get to them in the order in which they were received as soon as we are able to do so. So don't be shy. As you know, if you've joined us with webinars before, you know that this is Randy and I's favorite time and favorite thing to do in our job. So please ask us anything you would like, and we will either get the answer to you or go research the answer if we don't know and get it to you as soon as we can. So, what are we talking about? So as you probably know, if you've worked in the marketplace already, a set of provisions are pushed through every year a little bit before OEP to kind of calibrate the marketplaces to better serve clients, better protect clients, and make it easier, or the intentions are at least to make it easier for you to sell marketplace insurance to your clients. Usually, there's not a ton to talk about. This year, however, has brought the most changes to the marketplace since it was born back in 2010. So we have a lot to talk about. The ruling this year was a grand total of 1,121 pages, and I read almost all of them. I skipped like the bottom with all the like phone numbers and stuff, so I guess have to forgive me on that one. But I read a lot of it. And I'm here to hopefully translate all that legalese to you into something that can help your business and help you feel prepared for what is to come this OEP. Most of these provisions will start on July 20th of 2026. Some of them will start on January 1st of 2027, and the rest of them will start sometime in 2028. We will provide you a timeline towards the end of our show so you can kind of get an idea of what you should tackle first and what you can kind of let simmer for a little bit before it will affect you. So let's start with the compliance rules, with the rules that will most likely affect you and how you personally as an agent are going to change what you're doing out there based on these rules here. All right, let's go. So the first one is slimmer marketing options. So back up until this point, at least at a federal level, agents could do just about anything to motivate their clients to enroll as they saw fit. Now, we know, as I believe all of us in here are Michigan agents, correct me if I'm wrong. Yes, just about all of us in here are Michigan agents. So some of these things that are going to be proposed to be banned and are banned now, I guess, were already banned in Michigan in the first place, but now they're going to be banned at a federal level. So it was proposed that no cash, monetary rebates, gift cards, travel vouchers, or cash equivalents could be promised to prospects for enrolling and could not be given to one of your clients after they enrolled. So you could not dangle that sort of carrot in front of your clients to get them to enroll with you as like giving them a gift, right? You couldn't do that. If you're a Medicare agent, which I do see some in the audience today, you cannot do that in Medicare already. So think of it that way. That is not a thing you can do. So you can no longer give gifts that are of nominal, or I'm sorry, you have to give gifts if you are going to give gifts of nominal value. So think like the trinkets that we might have provided for you, that Blue Cross might give to you, or that Priority might give to you to give out to your clients, and they must be unbound to enrollment. So you cannot say that this gift, hey, I'll give you this nominal valued gift once you enroll with us, and the gift, just like Medicare, should be around $15.
And digging into some of the context behind this rule a little further, um, the last April's marketplace affordability and integrity rule, coupled with this rule, really target what CMS is seeing as fraud, and particularly enrollment fraud in the marketplace. So what had been happening in CMS's words is that unscrupulous brokers, so none of you folks, but unscrupulous folks out there, we're essentially buying people's, applications for them, right? They're saying, "Hey, I'm going to give you $50 to let me apply on your behalf," and they would get coverage and perhaps use it or not. But then on the back end of that, the broker is collecting the commission for the enrollment. And so by formally banning these sorts of things, the market uh, CMS and the marketplaces are in better position to take action against those sorts of things going forward. So a little bit of color as far as why this rule is in place, even though it's already been in place here in Michigan.
I was gonna say it wasn't really a problem for us, I guess, because we were already not doing these things in the first place. But now you can't do that like anywhere. So, but I mean, I bet none of you were doing it anyway in the first place, so we probably don't have to worry about this one. All right, so then the marketing options got even slimmer. So before plans could be advertised by us agents as we saw fit to do so, we could put out just, it was, we always called it the Wild West of marketing in comparison to Medicare because of how much like room you guys had. We had to kind of make our own rules and kind of advertise ourselves how we saw fit. Um, that is start was starting to be seen by CMS as a problem because it seemed like, again, not agents who have action behind them, because we would never let you do these things, but agents were kind of misrepresenting either plan details or being kind of forward with how easy it would be to get a $0 premium plan, or kind of saying, oh, well, the deadline's coming up, and being kind of unclear what those deadlines were. So it is now going to be as proposed that you can no longer insinuate an automatic approval for a $0 premium amount. You can no longer talk about false deadlines. You can no longer have a celebrity endorsement for yourself, and you can no longer cite laws that are not real to get clients to enroll. So essentially, it kind of feels like to me that CMS is trying to get the plans themselves to do the talking and to get them to stop focusing on anything other than like the plan details themselves to get people to enroll. I guarantee a lot of you agents out there in who are listening were doing that in the first place. And I know because I made some of the marketing materials for you, some of you were kind of talking about some of the like deadlines and stuff, but because I didn't give you fake deadlines, I knew they were real deadlines. So just to clarify, you can still talk about deadlines. And you can still talk about like open enrollments and stuff like that. You just have to know for sure that those deadlines are real and that those are the actual deadlines, right? So what I gather here is people probably also were just kind of leaving deadlines open and using the same marketing materials for years and years with fake deadlines on them and not updating them. I guarantee that was a problem too. So that's where some of this is coming from.
There's a bit of that and a bit of enroll now, enroll today, right? This rule, this particular provision is in kind of response to some of the high pressure sales tactics and marketing tactics that went hand in hand with the broker fraud we talked about a few moments ago, right? So really, it's an attempt to protect beneficiaries by limiting the avenues for fraudulent enrollments to take place.
I did read in there as well back to the no insinuating auto approval for $0 premiums. That doesn't say, it didn't say that you couldn't talk about how there's $0 premiums available. You just couldn't promise that your client would be approved for that or that they would receive automatic approval. That's what they seem to have the problem with. So I would just not talk about the $0 premiums just to be safe, so that nobody could say that you were insinuating that they were for sure going to get them. But that was the language within the ruling itself. And then finally, and I just thought this was interesting because you're getting the benefit of me having actually read all these pages here. They mentioned deep fakes for the first time in any rule I've ever read. And I'm not going to pretend like I have read every single page of every rule ever, but this first time I noticed it that they've mentioned deep fakes were banned. So you could not like go on Claude or Chat GPT or whatever and tell an AI generative thing to say, oh, get the president to say that my plan is the best and then make that into ad. You can't do that anymore either. And again, I doubt that any of you in here were doing that, but if you ever get the itch to do that, don't. That It just goes to show that CMS understands that AI and that kind of stuff is getting into the market and starting to affect the way that business is going. And they're starting to throw it out there that they're looking to wind that out and pull that out of the insurance market. Speaking of those marketing materials, there was no rules previous to this final rule on storing those materials that you use. As you know, in the Medicare space, Medicare does have a set time frame of 10 years that you must store those materials to be held on to for auditing purposes. So CMS thought that, yes, probably a good idea that we start having our agents kind of hold on to their materials for a while. In case we do choose to audit them, we find a problem, we can ask them to produce that marketing material for us so we can continue our auditing process. So that is something that's going to happen. You will be asked to store them, but there is no time frame established for how long you must store them. So it doesn't sound like CMS is interested in like going back 10 years to see what you were doing 10 years ago. They just want to see like probably if you're immediately hosting something that is inappropriate, that they can ask, or they might, I guess, think is inappropriate, they can ask you for that and you produce it for them. So there's no time frame on this or how long for now, at least, but they do say you must hold on to your marketing materials that you're using so that they can take a peek at them later. And again, I bet you are probably already doing this in the first place. So don't get it wrong. Before there was no one person for sure if you were working for like an agency or like basically just who was responsible when a marketing rule was broken. Was it the carrier who, gave you the material? Maybe you took some of their old materials and used that. Is it the FMO's responsibility who made the marketing material for you? Is it your responsibility because you posted it? Oh, there's so many options, right? So as of right now, just as proposed, the principal agent is going to be responsible for all of the marketing materials that were used under their agency. So even if it was not, if you are a principal agent, even if it's not you personally who put up false or misleading or inappropriate marketing materials or put up that deep fake of, I don't know, Macaulay Culkin saying that this is the greatest Medicare marketplace, but whatever. It is the principal agent is responsible for making sure that those things are all correct. And the consequences as such is that your marketplace agreement can be revoked if they find you uncompliant. That doesn't mean that it will automatically be, it just can.
Yeah, and there's even though it was a little Freudian slip you had there, it's a nice there's a nice parallel to draw here between a lot of the fraudulent enrollment or alleged fraudulent enrollment that happened in the marketplace and a lot of the high pressure sales that are coming out as call centers in the Medicare market as well, right? When call centers are legally calling your clients and asking them for enrollments. Now CMS has a firm target, right, on who they're going to hold accountable for that, and it's the principal agency or the principal agent of that agency. So if there's that call center that's found to be a house of ill repute, so to speak, in terms of pushing enrollments. It's they're finding an easier way to cut the head off the snake, right? Rather than letting them throw their downlines under the bus, this is giving them that latitude to really take more and stronger and definitive action against those agencies.
All right. So this is going to sound pretty familiar to those of us who work in Medicare, and actually with Marketplace, because I mean, you were doing this already to an extent. So previous to this point, consent to work with a client, as you know, you have to get it. That has always been, in the last couple of years, a thing that you had to do. But you could do it however you wanted. Brandy and I have been making for you guys your own customized consent documentation that you could give out to your clients, and it was great. But now, starting January 1st, 2028, you must use a standardized form that will be produced by HHS. So we have been watching CMS's webinars on RegTap to see kind of when that is going to come. They said they're going to bring it out as soon as possible. So keep a lookout for that form. If it were me and I were an agent, I would just start using it as soon as it came out just to be safe. Um, but we'll see exactly how that plays out because they did also talk a bit in this final rule about signatures and like performing an action or taking an action, as they said it in the rules itself, as to what exactly it means to consent to something. Because as we saw before, you could document that basically however you wanted. Some people were just typing a signature onto a piece of paper, onto like a PDF, and saving that. That will no longer be considered giving consent, like physically typing out the signature. It would have to be an electronic signature. So using something like DocuSign would be considered taking an action to give consent. Checking a box would not be considered taking an action, but receiving an email from the person, recording them verbally, and taking those electronic signatures on the other hand, and then of course, obviously, an actual wet real life signature, all those things would be considered counting as consent.
And for
Also
what
keep in, oh, go ahead.
I said, for what it's worth, if you are partnered with Action Using Health Sherpa to facilitate your marketplace enrollments, Health Sherpa has really taken the lead on a lot of these things here as well. There's already forms built into the workflow when the consumer chooses to partner with you. And indeed, when anytime they update the application, the review portion of this is taken care of as well. So can't advocate for that enough. And if you need more information about how to partner with Action on Health Sherpa, please just give us a shout. We're happy to help you out.
Yes, absolutely. So if you're using Health Sherpa or something like that, this probably is not going to be something you're going to have to worry about because you're just going to use what's in there, and I'm guaranteeing it's going to be compliant. But if you're somebody who does enjoy that pen and paper touch, just make sure that you do get the latest form. And then keep in mind too, I did read this. It might affect some of y'all. I did see some of your forms were saying things like, "Oh, I give consent until consent is revoked," and as that way of like get it skirting around having to remember to present this consent each year to your clients. As soon as these new forms are required in on Jan 1 of 28, those ones are no longer valid. So if you did do that, smart move, honestly, but those will no longer be valid. You do have to use that one. You do have to have them re-sign one of those, and those are valid for a year. You'll have to, just like Medicare, redo them every year. Okay. So we did talk about as well in this final rule, if vendors, before in the previous world, vendors like Health Sherpa could administer trainings and certifications for the marketplace. Now, this year, only the Department of Health and Human Services can administer trainings and certifications for the marketplace. And that went through as proposed, pretty straightforward. So if you really liked, say, Health Sherpa's trainings and certifications, and you were only doing those, and you forgot your password to the CMS's stuff, or you don't even have an account with them, you're probably going to want to get that squared away, get those accounts set up and ready to go so that you can get those trainings done as soon as possible and not wait around for, wait, did I capitalize the first letter of my password, or what's my email, or oh, I got a new one since then, all that jazz. I particularly know how painful that was is when I got married, I'm like, oh my God, I have to change all this stuff. So do that now before things get crazy. So that's all I have for that portion of our show. So what you should do, what does this translate for you as an agent? So you should watch out for the standardized consent form coming out. It will probably come out way before Jan 1 of 28, but it must be used by Jan 1 of 2028. If you are giving out gifts, which hopefully you're not because it wasn't legal in Michigan anyway, but if you're doing things in other states giving out gifts, quit doing that. Only give out nominal gifts and do not tie them to an enrollment. Ensure all of your market materials are accurate and follow the rules. and are not deep faking anything or are not just or are at least accurate to any enrollment periods or don't say things like enroll right now. Ensure all your marketing materials follow the new restrictions and you're housing them and storing them for a little bit. So basically think Medicare, but minus all of that carrier approval jazz that you have to go through with Medicare. And then make sure to get your account ready through HHS for trainings if you are someone who really just loves training through a third party. So, unless we have any other questions, I didn't see any in the chat. Let's move on to how the exchange oversight is going to change. So, silver loading. Okay, I got to do a little bit of explaining first before I talk about what is proposed to be changed here. So, okay, silver loading is not when you go werewolf hunting, or is it werewolves, vampires, whatever. Don't worry about it. So silver loading is when the carrier guesstimates kind of how many CSR dollars they're supposed to be getting based on the enrollments that they have in their silver plans, but then they don't get it because someone guesstimated their income poorly or whatever, and they're not going to get that money anymore. So that money that they're not going to get, they often are guesstimating how much that's going to be, and then baking it in to the premium cost for those who are enrolling in those plans that do have those CSRs linked to them, so they don't have to wind up holding the bag for all that money that they aren't getting once those things are all shaken out once tax season comes around. And CMS kind of just said that this is okay to do and they're fine with this happening. The exact way that it was worded in the law is that as long as it's actuarially justified as a CSR load factor, it is calibrated on actual experience and only accounts for the projected revenue lost of unreimbursed CSR payments without materially exceeding that amount. So translating that into regular words is I took that as meaning that plans can just basically play the prices right with that number so they can get as close to that number of how much they're losing out without going over. And how we are going to check that and how CMS is going to check that is by having them submit a URRT outline to justify that amount. And then states must use that URRT to ensure that only the unpaid amount is being used there. So that is going to go through as proposed. So states may choose to ban this practice if they want. That wouldn't really affect us in Michigan because we're, as we know, federally based marketplace. So this will be okay to do for plans on in Michigan at least, so long as that unified rate review template matches the amount of money that they are making from this practice. The plans are making from the practice, that is. So as long as those two are matching up and they're not taking tons and tons over, tons and tons under, whatever, then they are allowed to load those missing CSRs into those plans. So hopefully that makes sense. I had to think about it a while when I first heard it, like silver loading. Okay. So time and distance standards, not too much will change for us here in Michigan because we, as I said before, are a federally facilitated exchange. So this does not apply to us, but if you work in another state, this might matter to you. So previous to this rule, plans on the state-based exchanges must meet the same time and distance standards as were required by the federal exchanges. And now, it was proposed and finalized the same way that state-based plans must prove that they meet applicable standards on their own. States can choose to create their own standards for time and distance and make sure that and measure that and determine that they are meeting those standards on their own, so long as the ACA standards, the very broad ACA standards that are written, are still being met as well. So they can choose to measure how they're being met and that they are being met and proving that they're being met on their own, just as long as they're still being met.
Just to clarify, when we say time and distance standards, we're talking about doctor accessibility, right? Do I have a certain
Yes.
number of PCPs, cardiologists, something like 48 other specialties within a reasonable time and distance for me to access? Um, The federal government has its own standards on federally facilitated marketplaces. What this rule does is give states the flexibility to set their own time and distance standards if they use time and distance, or to enforce them as they see fit.
Right, because it's a little different to enforce a time and distance standard and say like Wyoming in comparison to New York City, right? Because you're going to have a bajillion providers within walking distance of you, I'm assuming, in New York City. I don't know, I've never been there, but that's just what I picture. In Wyoming, I don't think you can go out, step outside and just walk to your, endocrinologist, let's say. So they get to do that a little differently now if they so choose. So now is the state exchange improper payment measurement. So before state exchanges were able to audit their own advanced premium tax credit programs, how they were paid out, who they were paid out to, and if that number that they were supposed to be paying out matched the number that was actually paid out, that was up to the states to do. And if that number matched or not, that was the state's business. As of right now, the way that this will go into place is that the state now must complete a new federal audit that is called the State Exchange and Proper Payment Measurement to determine if that number is significantly improper or the number of how much they should have paid out in comparison to how much they do pay out is significantly different. And that number, significant difference, is defined as $100 million or exceeds $10 million and 1.5% of the program's overall funding. They have to develop a plan to prove that they are going to do something about that and kind of get those numbers closer to what they should be. That will go through as proposed, and this they will start measuring. States will be expected to start measuring these differences starting in January, and then they will be expected to produce the data for that year in 2028. So presuming then that if there is any states that have to develop an action plan, they will be developing an action plan for that data that is being put out in 2028 for the 2029 plans. So, federal facilitated exchanges and state-based exchanges user fees. So these are the fees that the feds charge plans to be on the marketplace enrollment platforms. So before it was 2.5% for the federal marketplaces and 2% for the state-based exchanges that were choosing to use the federal platform. They're getting a flash sale, I guess, because they are reducing that. It is now being proposed at 1.9% instead of 1.5%. That's going through as proposed and it will hopefully lower premiums. That's why the government's doing it and hopes to get premiums a little lower. So this will not really apply to us. Michigan, there was rumors that Michigan might try to become a state-based exchange, but I haven't heard anything about that in a bit. States used to have to prepare documentation of a plan to move to become a state-based exchange and submit regular check-ins with the feds to make sure they were doing the things they're supposed to be doing. Now they just have to put in a blueprint for approval for state-based health insurance exchanges. That's the same application they would have put in about a year and a half before they would want to move into becoming a state-based platform or state-based exchange. And that's going through as proposed. So they won't have to jump through additional hoops if they want to become state-based platform or exchange. They don't have to do that. They can just go ahead and keep going as they were doing. They found that a lot of that was just redundant. So, in tandem with that, moving from a federally based exchange to a state-based exchange, if a state chooses to do that, it used to be that states had to function 1 year as a state-based exchange using the federal platform before they went on to operate as a full state-based exchange. If they wanted to choose to go on to be a full state-based exchange, they used to have to do that for 1 year. That's not a thing anymore, and states can just go ahead and become a full-on state-based exchange if that's what they want to do. Pretty straightforward. Failing to reconcile advanced premium tax credits. So this one's a little more involved. Okay, so buckle in. So in the past, someone who was receiving advanced premium tax credits had 2 years to reconcile and fill out that 8962 form come tax time to prove that they did indeed make the amount of money that they said they did and therefore deserved or were able to be eligible for those premium tax credits. So they could go have the plan for a year, try to reconcile them, and if they failed to reconcile for whatever reason, the feds would send them a letter and say, hey, you didn't reconcile. We're going to give you another year to reconcile. Get it together, get us that form, and reconcile. And then a whole year would go by, and then if they still didn't reconcile, then they would owe all of that money back to the AP, pay back all that money, I should say. That went on for a while. And then in 2025, we proposed to change that to 1 year. CMS did, not us. CMS proposed to change that back to 1 year, but that was struck down in court in 2026. So a few months back, that old one was struck down in court again and was found to be unlawful. It was reproposed again, so the federal marketplaces would only have 1 year to process a reconcile for 2027, and then states could choose to keep that 2 years as it was. And that was finalized. This time it is for real. So unless anything happens between now and OEP, your clients will just have 1 year instead of the two to reconcile for their tax credits before they are removed. There is no 2 year grace period like there used to be. And unless they're in a state marketplace, then they can choose to have 2 years if they want. And then all exchanges by 2028 will have to have just that 1 year of time. So they would just get the 1 year to have those claims reconciled and keep their tax credits. Otherwise, they get them removed. So hopefully that makes sense. And then just because I found these interesting as I was reading, CMS did report a little bit about how people were affected by some of the rules that were put out about advanced premium tax credits. So just if you're curious, these came directly from the law or from the ruling itself. 29% of marketplace enrollees were in fully subsidized plans or are currently in fully subsidized plans. About 430,000 people lost advanced premium tax credits from failing to reconcile the year before. And about 235,000 people lost advanced premium tax credits because of the way that the rules were changed last year. So that's a pretty decent chunk of people, and I'm assuming they're estimating that even more people are going to lose premium tax credits for failing to reconcile fast. This will happen faster, I guess I should say, because they won't have those 2 years of time. And I bet there's going to be a drop off again from people not reconciling in that amount of time again. But just remember that just having those premium tax credits removed doesn't automatically disenroll the client from the plan. They'll still stay in the plan that they have. They'll just be expected to pay the full premium instead of the discounted one. So if I were an agent, it were me and it were my paycheck on the line, I would make sure that clients understand that and they understand what happens if they don't reconcile and understand that they also can reconcile mid-year and then still get those credits back on the refund so long as they reconcile within that year. Okay. Premium tax credits for lawfully present citizens. This was one of those other back and forth flip-flopping ones. So in the past, premium tax credits were okay for lawfully present non-citizens. There was no like deeper definition of that. Just if you were a lawfully present non-citizen, you could get tax credits on the marketplace. In 2025, that rule removed premium tax credits for lawfully present non-citizens. Then it was struck down in court. So then it paused it. It was re-put back on again and is now being finalized as proposed now. So for starting on July 20th, premium tax credits will only be granted to this new category that was invented called eligible aliens. And those who are eligible aliens are those who are green card holders, those who are Cuban, Haitian entrants, those who are COFA migrants, and those people would then also have to have their status verified annually to continue to keep those premium tax credits. These people would no longer be able to get premium tax credits, and that is DACA recipients, asylees, lawfully present individuals, temporarily protected status, those with temporary protected status, I should say, and lawfully present non-citizens with income 100% below the federal poverty level. So that is a decent chunk of people who will now no longer be getting premium tax credits who used to, and that is going to go through as proposed. So that went back and forth for a little bit. So what you should do now is Michigan is a federally facilitated market state for now, so you can prep for a 1-year failure to reconcile process in the meantime. You should have a plan for clients who are losing their premium tax credits, whether that be, and I would plan for whatever plan for your plan. I would plan for your plan now, right? So if you are worried that you're not going to be able to offer off something off marketplace for your clients who are going to lose their premium tax credits, or for clients who are no longer going to be eligible for the marketplace, I would get a new carrier now, or I would look at alternatives, maybe getting appointed with an alternative type carrier, something like that. And I would really make sure this time around that my clients understood what a Form 8962 is and what the reconciling process is, because if they then lose out on those tax credits and then are surprised with a big old premium come January and they just don't pay their premium because they can't afford it, then you're losing out on that revenue, right? So if it were my revenue on the line, I would be really making sure that my clients understood the process, what they had to do before they signed on the dotted line. Plan design. So this is the one that I think is the most valuable to you. So essential health benefits are the first one that are going to change a little bit. There are 10 federally mandated ones. I always think of them as the 10 commandments, and states could add their own as they chose to do so. In Michigan, we, for example, have the drug overdose reversal treatment essential health benefit. So in Michigan, we've 11. And there was no reason really for you to understand, or agents to really differentiate or understand the difference between ones that were mandated by the feds or the state. They were just kind of there. They had to have them. Doesn't really matter. So now what is going to be different is starting in 2028, any essential health benefit that isn't part of the original 10 is now going to be labeled as an in addition to essential health benefit. And any in addition to benefit is then responsible to be paid for by the state. And not that way, the cost of it is no longer passed on to the consumer or the person who's enrolling in the plan. So basically you're saying to the states, the feds are, if you want this new essential health benefit, if you want drug overdose reversal treatments in Michigan, then the state of Michigan is going to pay for that. It is not going to be the plans paying for that, or the clients who are then enrolling in the plan. And then finally, adult dental was put on the docket as something that could be added as an essential health benefit. And a state by state basis, Michigan was thinking about it, but it is no longer going to be allowed to be a essential health benefit for anyone. And speaking of not allowed essential health benefits, states for the time being are no longer going to be allowed to add on new essential health benefits for the time being. So no new ones, no adult dental, and if you have extra ones, you're paying for them. The hardship expansion for catastrophic plans that already existed last year is being proposed as permanent, and would span across all states, not just the federal facilitated marketplaces. This will lead more clients to have more access to catastrophic plans. So basically, anyone who lost subsidies is going to be able to enroll in catastrophic plans again. And those catastrophic plans are going to be more flexible. So before, they had to be at least 60% actuarial value or less, were then kind of low cost, low coverage option. And there were very narrow difference between these plans and bronze plans. So a lot of the times it just kind of made more financial sense to hop on one of those bronze plans. I bet a lot of you guys in the audience today were kind of nudging your clients towards bronze plans when they were looking at catastrophic plans, just because oftentimes it made more financial sense to just go with the bronze plan. CMS saw that as a problem, wanted to create new innovative ways to make catastrophic plans more appealing for your clients, maybe make them easier for you to sell as well. And here are those options. This is really interesting, kind of the things they're thinking of to kind of make them more viable for you. Catastrophic plans can now be 1 year or can last more than 1 year, but no more than 10 years. So you might see a 10-year catastrophic plan out there. Whoa. That doesn't mean the person has to stay on it for 10 years, that they can leave it at any time and it cannot be revoked from them if they no longer are experiencing a catastrophe. So if it was because of their lower income, if their income raises, they cannot be removed from that plan because of the raise in income or because there's no longer a tornado next to them or whatever the problem was. That's not a thing. Um, they can have limits based on the year, the life of the contract, or this one was interesting, a disease-based cost. So a catastrophic plan could say, hey, we'll cover cancer treatment for you. I know the other ones don't, but we'll only cover this amount for any cancer-related treatment. That's kind of interesting and different. There can be pre-deductible preventative services and up to 3 PCP visits before deductible. Not a thing that was available before. Enrollees should not be removed, cannot be removed, like I said before, from these multi-year plans due to a hardship loss status. Enrollees leaving plans can be charged the rest of the duration of the plan's premiums. I said that too. So, if they only stay 8 of the 10 years, they cannot be required to pay that other 2 years of time. And then MOOPs are set at 130% of the regular ACA limit, which is $15,600 for 2027. So that's kind of, we'll talk about the bronze part, how that kind of plays into the bronze portion of the show in a little bit. But that's kind of the reaction to how there was kind of like a crunch within the marketplace where how um, the plans were becoming basically impossible to host. But we'll talk about that in a second. So just remember that the MOOP is going to be set at 130% of the regular limit for ACA plans. So standardized plans used to be a thing, will not be a thing anymore, just to say it as basically as possible. There used to be one standardized plan for each product and each network and each metal tier. And each plan if a carrier offered plans different from that standardized plan in that metal tier, that standardized plan had to meaningfully differ from a different other plan in there. That is no longer going to be a thing. There will no longer be standardized plans. That doesn't mean that if a carrier offered a standardized plan, they don't have to like get rid of it. You can still have it. You just don't have to label it as standardized. So the plans that if clients know and love, if they already have them and want to keep them, that's okay. They can. But they just won't be indicated as a standard. And there is no need to meaningfully differ from a plan if that plan, and like in the past where the plans had to meaningfully differ from one another. So they'll still be there. Don't worry about it. So, okay, this one's a little complicated too. So ask questions if you need to. But keeping bronze plans bronze. So the way that bronze plans were determined, and the way that bronze plans are organized into the bronze category, we basically were going to hit a point where it would be no longer viably possible to create a bronze plan because there was no way that the carrier could hit that 60% actuarial value while also staying under that max out of pocket and also remaining profitable, right? So you're basically creating a situation where it made no sense. Eventually, carriers would have no sense in continuing to offer bronze plans because they wouldn't be able to continue to make money, hit the 60% actuarial value, and keep the MOOP in place. So to save that, there basically was a choice where they could like either let that trend continue and hope that carriers just didn't stop offering bronze plans, or they could change the parameters of what a bronze plans was and hope that that would just kind of work out itself somehow. And this is how they chose to do it, is by allowing two different types of bronze plans on the marketplace, one being required and one being optional. So if a carrier does choose to offer a bronze plan, they had to have one that stayed under the legal out-of-pocket max, but might not hit actuarial value. And they kind of hoped that that would keep the actuarial value between 63 and 65%. So we're not going wild here, but we're still staying as close to that 60 as we could. They're guessing that they're going to hit around 63 to 65% actuarial value in that type of plan. And then if a carrier wanted to offer additional plans within the bronze category, they would then, it could exceed the legal MOOP if they wanted to in 50% increments. But if they did that, they would have to get much closer to and hit the target of that 60% actuarial value. So There might be a lot of wig changing going around in the bronze world as plans try to meet those two optional types and hit that required type. Um, States can choose to ban the optional second type. So if they want to, they can say that, oh, we're not going to have these crazy high moops. We're going to keep them there, but we're going to allow them to hit maybe a 63, 65% actuarial value instead to try to keep bronze bronze, if you will. Okay. That was a little crazy. If it made, hopefully that made sense. If not, ask questions. So, non-network plans. Currently, to be on the marketplace, you have to have a network. That will no longer be a thing. We can offer non-network plans on the marketplace. Those will hit the marketplace in 2028. State-based exchanges, if they want to, can offer those in 2027 instead. The hope is that this will give more innovative options for carriers, and they can put more out there for their clients to see and maybe potentially afford and purchase. And I know what you're thinking, Chelsea. What are you talking about? How would that work? Well, let me show you. So this is kind of how, in the simplest terms, explaining it like you're five, how non-network plans versus network plans works. So in a network plan, a carrier searches for providers willing to work with them. That provider states a plan, a price they're willing to accept. They sign a contract. The government approves that list of providers is adequate for the plan, and then that plan will sell on the marketplace. Now it's kind of like the other way around, where instead of the provider stating the price they're willing to take, the carrier is going to state, or the plan, I should say, the plan is going to state a rate that they're willing to pay providers. And then any provider who's willing to take that amount will raise their hand and say, you could have my sword, you could have my axe, whatever, you can have my bow. That plan will then give that list of providers who have stated they're willing to take that amount to them. The government will then make sure that that list meets ACA standards, and then that plan sells on the marketplace. So that kind of gives more wiggle room to the providers to hop on board for these non-network plans, at least in theory. We won't know until we get there to see exactly how it's going to play out, but that's the idea. Hopefully, this will give more room for carriers to innovate and bring more plans to the marketplace more affordably. So, what should you do in the meantime with all these changes? I would talk to Randy and I would make sure that we are making sure we are educated on all these things, how the non-network plans are going to work, what the non-network plans are going to cover, what they're not, how much they're going to cost, where their favorite, where understand and how to explain how standardized plans disappeared, where they're going, where they're not going, that they're not gone. They're just probably a little different. They might be gone. We'll see. Bronze plans have some different cost sharings for your clients. They might be a little confused. Why is my MOOP so high? Why is this weird? Why is this one? I thought we had standards. Just be ready to explain all those things to their clients. And then catastrophic plans, I'm sure they're going to hear about them, be interested in them, explaining either why it's a good option or why it might not be a good option for your clients once all those are released. We're going to have to wait to see what those plans are released like to see what will exactly we'll have to learn about. But Randy and I will be there making sure that we help you explain to them. And then just keep on the lookout because if states don't want to pay for these extra health benefits, they might go away. So just be aware of that and keep your ear to the ground to see what goes away. I don't know if they will or not. Okay, so I talked for quite a while. Which of these changes do you think will influence your clients the most? I am very curious on this one. All right, I'm seeing some people say that they're very interested in how non-network plans are going to work. Oh, we got someone saying that the MOOPs increase is going to be crazy. I know there's a lot changing. I'm even like every couple of days I'm like, "Ooh, there's more stuff to like they're changing." Like, "Ooh, how's that going to look?" That's going to be so interesting to see. I can't wait to see what these plans are going to look like in the future. So what's getting contested? We already have things getting contested here, folks. Chicago, Baltimore, Columbus, and I'm gonna say that's pronounced Pima. If anyone knows it's not, let me know and I will pronounce it correctly. Pima County, Arizona have already sued CMS saying that the extended catastrophic plans, the higher out-of-pocket maxes for those bronze plans and non-network plans are currently unlawful. So the court case is currently in Baltimore, is where they're gonna have it or whatever. So I'll keep on my eyes on that for you and let you know if we do see what will happen there. But some of the stuff might not even happen, as we know. We might wait till the night before and be like, oh, guess that's not a thing. It seems to happen at least once. So what is not happening? There's a couple things I did not mention for you today, and that's because they were not finalized. Medical loss ratios. So it used to be that 80% of claims had to be spent on 80% of the revenue had to be spent on claims, right? And then the rest of the 20% that plans collected had to be spent on could be spent on administrative services. But at least 80% of it had to be spent on the claims that were being put in by the clients that had the plan. This number was the same across the entire country, and states could apply to have differentiated those numbers if they saw fit. And then that would get approved or disapproved. Michigan did it once, it wasn't approved, whatever. That was proposed to be adjusted on a state by state basis by the federal government to help keep carriers in certain areas. I'm assuming this is because carriers are leaving some areas because it's no longer profitable. They wanted to make that more profitable, seem more profitable for those certain areas, seem more profitable for clients, or for carriers, I should say, so clients would stay in the plans and promote more stability in areas. That was postponed. The CMS did not see that that would be helpful, really, at least for what they currently see. They're still looking and asking people for comments on it. They didn't think it was strong enough argument as of right now that that would be a luring factor to get plans to stay in areas that were experiencing flight, basically. But states can still, so presumably, they didn't say yes or no to this, but presumably states will still be able to request those MLR adjustments if they want. Essential community provider standards. So essential community providers are providers that are federally qualified health centers, family planning centers, and other centers. CMS proposed that we could reduce the amount of those in a service area. As of right now, before, I should say, plans were, and now, because it was not finalized, but it used to be that, and it currently is, that 35% of all essential community providers had to be within the service area. And there had to be at least 35% of them in a service area to be considered okay for CMS. That number was going to be lowered to 20% to save some money for these plans. But they come to find out that that really didn't seem to save much money for them, or at least didn't seem to be worth it to change the number. So that threshold is going to remain at 35%. There wasn't really much to be saved. So it used to, the last one we have here is state exchange enhanced direct enrollments. States have to host their own enrollment platforms if they want to be a state-based exchange. He proposed that states no longer had to host an enrollment platform and they could choose to just kind of pick a third party like Health Sherpa or somebody and say that they are the ones who are going to do that for us, assuming that they could do it cheaper than the state could. And then that was postponed for now. We'll see if that comes forward in the future. For us, it doesn't really matter because we were federal marketplace anyway. So moving forward, what does this look like for you as an agent? I put together a timeline for you in case you were like, whoa, that's a lot of changes, Chelsea. I don't know if I can remember all of these things in the order that I got to do them. So remember, most of this stuff is going to go into effect on July 20th, 2026. So the marketing rules, the bronze plan flexibility, plan standardization removal, state added essential health benefit freeze, the adult dental ban, the catastrophic plan reworkings, and the premium tax credit adjustments will all start on July 20th. Audits will start on January 1st, and the failure to reconcile changes because we got to wait for tax season to roll around. That will change on January 1st. And then the new consent form, non-network plan launch, differentiated state essential health benefits, and all exchanges moving to 1 year For failure to reconcile policies will start in 2028 if it's one of the states that chooses to keep the 2-year one. So most of them are that are action items on your part are going to start on July 20th. And then some of them are going to trickle down through 2027 and 2028. So, how does this affect you? What are some things you should do right here, right now? Or the checklist you should create for yourself to make sure you're ready for OEP? Chelsea's got it for you. So, ensure all your marketing materials are compliant. Make sure you're not putting old stuff out there. Make sure your deep fakes of Macaulay Culkin are not around and you're not using those anymore. Hide those, put those away, store them, but don't use them anymore. If you feel that you need to redo your marketing materials or you want new ones, check our agent portal and request that those are made for you anew, and we are more than happy to do that for you. If you don't have a training account set up with CMS and you use a third-party vendor, get on that. Everyone knows how much it sucks to reset a password and all that jazz. Do it now before you forget. Leave yourself plenty of time to learn about products once they roll out because there might be a lot of changes going on. We got you there too with our action events. Prepare a solution for those who are losing premium tax credits and get appointed with new carriers as needed. Listen to the news or to us for any court case results, because as you know, one court is already challenging some of the stuff that I have said here today, so it might not even be a thing. We'll let you know once we know. And then keep an eye out for those new consent forms. They said at their most recent webinar that those will be available as soon as possible. So use them once you got them, so that way you don't have to make any changes later. Whew, that was a lot. Randy, did I get everything?
I think you did, Chelsea. You got everything that, that we had planned with seconds to spare. I think the big stuff here, right, of course, is compliance changes coming up. In the scheme of things, we know, I know most of you, and I know you're scrupulous people, so you're probably not allowed to worry about on that end, with the exception of the new compliant or consent review forms coming out in 2028. So we've got a little bit of time to think about that.